Through steadfast devotion to the gods of fear, time, and money, humankind was led to manifest a world colored by scarcity, competition, and sorrow.
Okay, welcome everybody to Simon on the Sofa. And it's great to have you with me again. And today, which you can probably already see in the split screen, I'm with Sacha Stone. Greetings, Sacha.
Simon, that was a delightful entry. You said, I'm Simon on the sofa, and you picked your nose for about 4 seconds.
Exactly. I made sure I got as deep as I could as well.
Okay. Nice to see you in the hat and the cardigan. Yes again.
Yeah, this is how I roll. Do you know what? When I put this hat on this morning, I was like, I wonder if he makes a comment about the hat today. Because last time I had a different hat, yeah? This is a new hat. Yeah.
I like this one.
You like this one, yeah? The last one you said I looked, I think, like an old man. And you was asking where I got the damn thing from. So I made sure I upgraded just for today. This is new, just for today's call. Huh?
But I think it's only fair to let the world know that your better half has actually been co-opted as your sound engineer today, probably unpaid.
Everyone's paid abundantly, Sacha, in ways way beyond financial gain.
That would be 0-point economics. Got it.
Exactly. So just a little intro, not really needed for many people that might tune in. But this, I'm glad to say, is, I think, one of the fifth conversation now that I've been able to get Sacha with us. And we always just show up. And the way to be with Sacha, if any of you don't already know, there's a lot of videos and interviews out there, loads of a wealth of information that you can go and research and look at after this call. And also underneath this video, I really want to direct you to, which might cut out a lot of questions you have and whatever, judgments and preconceptions. There's going to be an article link that Sacha has recently published below this video, okay? So if you have any further questions, some words today that come up you're just unaware of, you don't understand, please go to that essay, digest it. There is 40 or more links on that essay where you can go on your own research. So I just want to say that at the beginning so I don't get questions about, what Sacha's saying here, there, and everywhere. He's actually spent the time to create that document. So other than that, we're going to dive in transparently. So Sacha, what's with you right now? What's alive in you at this moment? I know you've just had quite a busy day.
What, you want me to give you the alpha and the omega in the life and times of a cult leader? Is that it?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, we can kick off.
Let's kick off on that, please.
That's like a running joke at the moment because every so often we get that coming over coming at us, the cult thing. And honestly, me and the crew, we look at each other and go, cult? I mean, what's culty about 0-point economics, about not taking money from people, about not inviting any philosophic or framework, not inviting any spiritual framework, because we actually disavow all of that nonsense and just talk about pick up a spade, dig a ditch, let's manifest the world we want, let's do it, in accordance with our highest values and highest expression. It's really simple stuff. But a moment ago, I showed you a little bit here of the New Earth Haven in Bali on screen, and this is the first flagship that's kicked out, and it's doing beautifully. We opened a few weeks ago, and it's a physical embodiment of what we've been banging on about for the last 2-3 years, which is the elevation of art and beauty and consciousness, and beginning to anchor that as the mainstay of our lives, and that myself and a noble crew of people are variously doing.
Yes, and it's for me, it's been great to witness that come alive and see the. I guess it's like anything, Sacha. See the idea come to fruition, but what I feel, which we don't have to spend much time on, but people can only see from the outside, from their limited perspective of what's happening, and then make assumptions and personalizing and et cetera, from that place. Unless you're really in it and of it and really digesting and doing the work that is required to sort of strip away the old identities, you're going to just continually, judge it from that those lower frequencies. That's how I see it, because I do read, so not much, but I read some of the comments that fly around, and I do recall. That old story of, what's happening? Why isn't it happening quick enough? You're saying this, you're saying that, but that's really irrelevant, right?
Well, but the question then is people are really projecting that question on themselves, because we've said from day one with the New Earth Project, we're not a fucking cult. don't have a fucking philosophy. We're not fucking spiritual in that sense.
Yeah.
We're simply a collective of people who are variously leaning our flames in together, leaning our creative vision in together, and manifesting insofar as we're capable of. And we're not asking permission. So it's getting a bit tiresome after 3 years repeating the same stuff,
Yeah.
but that's the metric. It hasn't actually changed.
Yeah.
And if people are saying it hasn't happened quick enough, what are they saying?
Yeah.
That their life hasn't happened quick enough? That their elevation of art, beauty, and consciousness over time, money, and fear hasn't happened quick enough? It's always a question for the person who's posing the criticism or leveling the judgment. So that for me is infantile nonsense, which we need to just move on from.
Good.
Certainly we have.
Yeah. Right, we move on from there because I only get to spend an hour with you, and I don't want to waste my time talking about that jargon. So let's dive in with some. I spoke to the beautiful Greg Paul the last week, which was wonderful. Hadn't touched base with him for a while. He's, for anybody viewing, you can see a talk that I did with him, and I'm going to be speaking with him in January. He's another part of maybe the core founders of the original New Earth project. And we were talking really, Sacha, about sovereignty and transparency, and really just diving in at that place again. And I guess one of the things I'd love to hear you talk about today, or give me a little pump of voltage, plug me in, is this sense of really, cutting out the bullshit, like you just said. Let's get real. Let's get transparent. What are you stepping into this sovereign being, and what's required to do that? But what comes up for you when I sort of mention the words sovereign being, transparency, and really stepping into that truth?
Well, okay, so you just said it in the last word, truth. Transparency is about truth, but transparency to what and in service of whom? Transparency to the government? Fuck off, not interested, thank you very much. You cannot see my underwear drawer. You're not invited to look into my underwear. I do not owe you taxes in order to pay for blood cult and the perpetration of wars on the other side of the planet. You do not use my tax dollars or any tax dollars toward roads and streets and clinics and schools and the rest of it. You use it towards buying and selling arms and munitions and peddling death. Therefore, I have no intentional inclination of accountability or transparency to fictions like governments and so-called authorities. So that's by degrees no interest in accountability or transparency when it comes to fictions or false light. Accountability and transparency to others, yes, more or less, depends on if they've merited or earned that level playing field. If they're coming onto the playing field and bringing something into the game, I will show them my hand of cards, and I'm assuming that they'll do the same thing. But do I owe it to the grand public? Do we owe it to the public at large to be transparent and accountable? No, of course we don't. Again, that's by degrees. It depends on who has earned the stripes to get on the playing field and who hasn't, or who's earned and merited the right to sit at the poker table in a given context. So I hope you understand what I mean by that. Now, accountability and transparency to self, absolutely, all the time, 100%. Right. That's an absolute science, and that's unshakable, must be unshakable.
Yeah, so I haven't heard transparency associated with accountability before, which is nice. So you mean, so I'm hearing sort of there's a sense of really knowing that there's layers to transparency, or that's what I'm hearing you say. There's more layers to transparency of what I'm willing to be transparent about, because transparency really is a personal thing, right? It doesn't just mean I need to tell everybody everything. This is what I'm doing.
Correct.
This is where I'm at. This is this is what I've got here, there, and everywhere. It's transparency to some degree depending on the situation at hand. That's what you're saying?
That's correct. And bear in mind, Simon, I almost called you Sacha. Bear in mind, Simon,
we are one of the same, Sacha. We are one of the same.
Bear in mind that we're living in a grotesque endgame culture of metadata surveillance, dragnet surveillance, Big Brother, when the government and twats like Barack Obama would stand up and dare to say to us, if you have nothing to fear, if you have nothing to hide, blah, whatever. That kind of talk, saying that Big Brother has a right to peer into your underwear drawer. And if you've done nothing wrong, you have nothing to fear. Well, that's disgusting, considering he's, by best accounts, Kenyan, Indonesian infiltrator of the presidency. I mean, there's all sorts of nefarious nonsense around the present incumbency in the United States. And of course, this latest U.S. sock puppet show in the election is something which we'll be dining on for many decades to come. The point being, who owes transparency and accountability to whom? Ultimately, we conduct the audit of self towards self, and that's what we need to focus on. We need to unplug this notion that we owe it to the government, or owe it to the authorities, or owe it to the priesthood, or owe it to anyone. You know, the Roman Catholic thing about confession. I mean, this is just disgusting. This was always about collecting. That was metadata surveillance. Okay, endemic around the world, conducted through the Roman Catholic Church. I mean, the Jesuits have been doing it for centuries, and that's how and why the Jesuitical order was devised, was as an intelligence infrastructure. And the Vatican complex and the Vatican conspiracy has not just survived, but has thrived on its intelligence network and gathering of intelligence and fomenting of wars and disturbances and so on. So again, the importance here is not about accountability to the world or transparency to the world, but about to self and conducting the audit of self in the sanctity of one's own heart.
As you're speaking, it's a great, well, not metaphor, but great example of how we used, this sort of sense of confession or speaking our truth. I guess with me, when I talk about transparency, on what I've seen and what I've looked at and what's become apparent to me, is that there has been no truth speaking. There has only been fear, lies, you know, and all this other survival emotion communication. So there hasn't actually been transparency. So even when I meet people and I still look out there in the world today, from a self perspective, I'm like, well, people don't know how to speak truth. They don't know how to speak. Like, there's so much fear attached to it. Like, oh, if I say this, how are they going to receive it? They're going to get offended. Am I revealing too much if I do, et cetera, et cetera. So even when it comes back to this idea of speaking truth to the bloody church and the government and all that, that's all been bullshit too. So absolutely. So I guess where I'm at the moment with this exploration of transparency is, how can I show up fully transparent? But like you said, that doesn't mean declaring everything, but it does mean, am I being honest to you? You know, who I'm with right now.
Authenticity. But again, Simon, I will be the one to determine the degree of your authenticity in direct proportion to my capacity to intuit the truth of what you're saying. So again, no judgment. Cast no judgment. I'm not going to judge whether Simon is being transparent or being opaque. That's a matter for him. That's a matter for him to weigh, measure, and synthesize in the sanctity of his own heart in his own time. It has nothing to do with me. And I shouldn't be injured. I shouldn't identify with your incapacity to be transparent. It's entirely a matter for you. I love you the way you are. Or not, as it may happen. But you see, again, it's all down to me in relationship with self. If I'm opaque in my relationship with self, then I'm harming self, I'm injuring self, because I'm thereby unable to engage my noble expression. I'm unable to engage the evolution of my spiritual becoming. I'm unable to engage the flame of creative expansion if I am opaque in relationship to self. So the only quanta that matters here is our capacity to engage that so-called transparency, or the flame of pure truth, in our relationship with self, because everything flows from that. Everything. Right.
So you brought it right round, because I was going to say, so ultimately, if I'm dealing with myself, if I focus on myself from that sovereign place, and I do whatever I need to, like you said, you're not going to judge me. Nobody's going to judge me. I'm going to do my best to be as authentic and transparent as possible. I'm then contributing and contributing to not only you, every engagement I have, every relationship I have, but I'm then putting that out into the field, right? I'm then putting that out into the field of whatever you want to call it, intelligence, source, whatever, and then that's what's going to be mirrored back to me. Yeah.
Yes.
That's always.
That's universal law of one. Whatever you put into the field will absolutely reflect back on you. So we are the arbiters of our own destiny, our own fate, our own doom, however you want to coin it. Yeah. Each of us are singularly responsible for everything that manifests on our radar screen, or in the holonomic field, or in the matrix, however we want to coin it.
So that brings it
back. That's accountability.
That's
accountability.
Yeah. So that points then, because we started on sovereignty, that points back the individual power. Is bringing the power back to the individual, right? Back to the people, which is where it is. Because then when we realize we don't have to lie, we don't have to, give, like you said, give off show our this, open our drawer to this. We don't have to do that. All of a sudden, we as individuals are the ones who are in control of everything in terms of, what we do, what we contribute, what comes in, what goes out. And we actually move beyond that lower dense frequency of, fear mongering and all this other crap that goes on in those lower rounds.
And in this context, you are now honor bound to stop paying taxes.
Yes.
Do you get that?
Of course.
You are honor bound in your duty of care as a living human being on the living soil. You are now duty bound to stop paying into blood cult and paying into the Luciferian wheel of a mutant civilization, which is what we're still living through the tail end of. Actually, it's the tail end of the entropic galactic sleep that we're living through, but it's also the highest compression point of the deviancy, the mutancy of that galactic sleep, which is how and why we're beginning to see the most grotesque narratives emerge, like ritual satanic abuse and the sacrifice of innocence, and children racketeering and pedophile rings proliferating in Washington, Whitehall, Brussels, all around the world. Sex slavery, mind control, the Babylonian complex that people like me have been banging on about for nearly 20 years is now becoming writ large in the plain sight of day. And it's getting to a point where people can not ignore it any longer. Right. This is a beautiful thing.
So it has to, it's the old saying of the truth will out. It has to all come out, right? It has to come to the surface.
Yes. And what happens in that context is that all those hierarchical echelons of parasitic, cannibalistic, ritual satanic, Masonic and occultist elites are being exposed into the vibral light of this unfoldment, this extraordinary chapter of our meta-consciousness unfoldment. That is coming to light. And as a direct result of that, there is a bifurcation occurring where the meek are beginning to inherit the earth. The meek in this context, which is quite a paradox, the meek are those who are claiming sovereignty, the ones who are actually finding the fire within the I am, the flame of I am, Atma, and able to stand within self and own their lives, own their life force, own their destinies and say, I am sovereign and I own this world. I am responsible for all that exists on my field of reality. And by definition, those are the meek. And those are the ones who are going to inherit the earth. So you think of the meek as being sweet little peasants tilling the fields, who never complain about the rich barons. Well, to some extent, there's an element of truth to that. But I would suggest that in the main, the meek are those warriors amongst us who are standing up within the flame of pure truth and not budging.
Yeah. That's it. We can end the conversation there. You've got enough from us today, and thank you very much, Stone. No, but but what I mean is, I love conversations with you, as you know, and more importantly, I feel that, like I put out, when I say this to people, like, you have the power, like you can step into your truth, you can really, like, your influence in the field, you are the grand creator of reality, you are the quantum field yourself, right? It's like there is no you in this equation. You are that powerful, literally you are, a God in a flesh. And, I said that recently, and, all I got is like, yeah, crazy, man. It's like, it's not there. It's still such a narrative, but we know it's a narrative that's birthing through. So maybe a question to you is, do you feel that will become, I guess I know the answer to this, but it's still for people watching, is that will become the main narrative, that will be more and more people are just stepping into this and realizing, yes, I'm feeling this. This is not an intellectual concept, theory, idea. This is a sensation. This is a feeling that I am dissolving myself and realizing how grand I am. No,
you're going to find baby Jesus descending from a chariot surrounded by the Elohim who comes to your rescue. And probably with some AV attendants as well, some of the and the Pleiadians as well, don't forget. Yeah, you're going to be rescued from out there Simon. Yeah.
Perfect.
That, curiously enough, is what most people, it would appear, who have devoted their lives or indentured their lives toward false light, meaning to say, toward those religious constructs, which are always predicated on idolatry or totemism, projecting outside of self, that the great redemption and salvation and absolution will come from out there, and therefore we should pray to the God and ultimately be sucked psycho-emotionally through astral straws, feeding these gods in the lower astral realms and manifesting the gods that then devour us. I mean, that's part of the grisly cycle, meta cycle of our galactic sleep, is the religious constructs that we have dreamt into manifestation, because we actually end up manifesting those gods that devour us.
Right.
So waiting to be rescued is the big no-no. That's the big trick, and that's where religions are so ultimately diabolical, is that invariably they're suggesting that you put off till a rainy day, and in the rainy day the Messiah will come and all will be well. But in the meantime, just pay attention to the priesthood or to the monkhood and do whatever they say, shuffle along, don't make too much fuss, and abnegate your sovereign expression. And don't step out of line. Don't think too hard. We've already been punished for taking one bite out of that apple. Well, I say, fuck it. Eat the whole goddamn apple tree and do it now.
Eat the whole apple tree. Pull the apple tree down and eat everything. Cook it up.
Better still, make it into cider because it lasts longer. Yeah.
So there's like when you say that, I know that like it's that thing, isn't it? That one of the biggest things, the hardest things for humans, or in my experience, to do is change, right? It seems to be that change is the only damn constant on this planet. And I know I myself have, at times of like wanting to change, wanting to like shift into and it's just like something holds on. I mean, I call it the emotional pain body, but it's like almost like an entity sometimes, this stubborn aspect of myself that just does not want to budge. It's like, no, I'm staying here in this awful place, I'm staying here in this weak, belittled little me. I'm staying here, and it just will not budge. And almost like I'm getting to the point now, Sacha, where I'm fighting it and slapping it and say, look, you're coming anyway, because there's nowhere better to go, right? And it's like this sort of to and fro with this emotional entity. Most people might think they need to strap me up now in a straitjacket and ship me off somewhere. But there's so much damn fear around it. Just even the idea of saying no to tax. I say that to people. They're like, no, I won't do that. I'm not going to do that. No way. I'll have the officials after me. I'll have the police after me. It's like, what would you say to people? And I know what you're going to say because you've said it before, but I always ask you this. What would you say to people that are just on that edge of fear?
3 words, 3 little words. Suffer, baby, suffer.
Right. So that's the case, isn't it? How much suffering do you want to keep on yourself? Yeah.
Apparently they've not suffered enough. Apparently the psycho-spiritual, psycho-emotional body in this context has not suffered enough. The compression has not reached the acme point yet in certain people. So they will self-punish and self-flagellate and self-mutilate until such time as they genuinely do reach essentially the break point, and then bring about that shift. And shift, as we know, in this somewhat cruel world, comes about in one of 2 ways. Either it happens through broken bones and blood and guts and car crashes and horrible traumatic experiences,
right,
that apprehend us and apprehend our path in life and then completely reset us. Or the ones who are smart are the ones who engage some real degree of mindfulness in their life's path and begin the process of elevating their own consciousness and thereby elevating the trajectory of their experience, and thereby, incidentally, elevating the experience of all those who come in contact with you. That's where the empathic wave or compassion is such a vital component of contributing toward the greater good, because where you do walk forth into the world as a self-realized or empathic individual engaged in that flame of truth or in sovereignty, you start to put out at the scalar and fractal level higher resonant values. And those values have a direct, palpable, physical effect on the etheric plane, which can now be photographed. I mean, Professor Konstantin Korotkov in Russia has pioneered advanced Kirlian photography, which demonstrates that your thoughts and emotions you can capture them in your auric field through photography, and you can also diagnose whether you're going to have a kidney stone in 3 weeks by looking at that auric field. So we've now got to the point where we know that that subtle plane exists, and not only exists, but has a dynamic effect on reality. So it simply goes to show that if you go forth with positive intention and empathic waves coming out of your heart, and compassion, kindness in action, all of those qualities and values have a dynamic, palpable effect on the field and will elevate the lives and the experience of people who come into contact with you and your work.
Right. So that's that sense that once you're in the divine, once you're in that presence, once you're functioning from that frequency, nothing else actually exists anyway other than that. It's I was tapping in recently to this sense that we've been told that our natural state is all of the fear, the resentment, the violence, the anger, the suffering, etc. And it's like we've acquiesced and said, yes, that's our natural state. But our natural state of being is divine, like you said, compassion, love, expansion, beyond what most people sort of put the pedestal people on and say, oh well, that's where we're trying to get to, right? That's where we're trying to get to in that inability to actually change. So that's wonderful to hear. And I guess maybe, like I say I guess because how I look at it for myself is, you either are, like you said, suffer baby suffer. You're either willing to just dive into the unknown and just let all that other stuff dissolve and see what happens, because let's be honest, there's not much else to hang around, and we're pretty clear of what the options are, right? It's like, exactly. we're pretty clear on what the options are. It's like this, which you can now see, it's been playing out for a hell of a long time, or the potential of something so phenomenal and unknown.
Not even potential. Yeah. It's auto-destruct or bliss surfing.
Yeah.
Auto-destruct or surfing bliss. Which?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're the madman. And you're the madman, Simon.
Yeah, I know.
Because you're the one who wants to pay taxes and pay into the blood cult.
Yeah, not me.
No, but I'm saying that's what your friends are accusing when they in those engagements, when they're accusing you of the madness. Yeah. It's beyond insane. Yeah. But that's the perfect prison complex, prison planet, isn't it? When we self-police one another like that, people come and call you a madman or call me a madman.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. And actually, for people listening, this idea of like really just pulling yourself out, there's a number of places to look at. But when you start to really look at the whole passport, the codes, the Black's Law Dictionary, you start to look at, there's a great website called Get Out of Debt Free. You start to really look at all of these, entrapments, let's call them, these ways of controlling us. It actually makes sense. The irony was, Sacha, just to throw this in there for people listening, when I went to the so-called authorities or the natural, the people that are supposed to help you and guide you in sort of debt and so on, I spoke to some of the people that work there, and then they gave me information that clearly said that you don't have to pay any of this. Exactly.
I know. They know it. They absolutely know it.
And they were really nice. They were really kind to me. They were like, well, and I said, well, if I'm going to do this for the next, I'm going to die before I pay any of this off. And they goes, yeah, well, that's obviously we don't expect people to do that, but that is the case. You don't actually have to pay that much, and it was this, and then you like, oh, and all this fear build up. This is the key about fear. I want to say this. I know you know this, Sacha, but for people listening, false evidence appearing real. It's an old saying now. It's been thrown around there. But fear is all self-internalized. It's like how many times you must have had this experience for those listening where you think something's so scary. You build up all these thoughts and feelings and these emotional experiences. And then you do the damn thing. You go through it and you look back and you say, well, what the hell was all that fear about? There was actually nothing to be scared about. So I just want to throw that out there for people listening. Trust me, whatever stage you're at right now, go through the fear and see that the fear actually to some extent is calling you. It's guiding you. If you're feeling fear, jump and just, trust me, on the other side, there's a hell of a lot more beauty and wonder and awe. So moving on from there, maybe, Sacha, what's... Yeah, what do you feel? I know you're beyond, you know, you don't look at things from time, especially not this sort of calendar that we function on, but definitely as we're moving into this so-called 2017, what do you feel? What do you feel is coming or going to emerge, just from even from a sort of, you know, projective guess?
Yeah, well, what I'm seeing is a vital year coming up, and one that I'm personally looking forward to a great deal, largely because 2016 was so shit. But 2027, I think, is going to be a remarkable year. If judging by what's happened with the trumpet ascendancy in the United States, either which way, that's going to shake up the established order somewhat. Whether he's part of a controlled narrative or not is almost immaterial to my mind, because it was the bitch Clinton who was absolutely intended by the Jesuits to get in the saddle in the Oval Office, and that did not happen. And so the Khazarian Zionist reticulan mob cabal have almost certainly taken such a heavy kick to the gonads that they'll be doubled up roundabout now. So that's going to probably play out in some pretty nefarious ways, like this quote-unquote assassination of the Russian ambassador to Turkey, classic case in point, which appears to be something of a controlled scenario. But I think we're going to see a lot more false flag events, a lot more squibs and pops and bangs going off, which is always what the Jesuits ultimately end up doing. God knows they've set Operation Gladio has been in place since the Second World War, which is a highly extensive, heavily funded network of heavily controlled, mind-controlled agents in all nations, more particularly in Europe, and that those agents are the agents that tend to go and set off the bombs and create the disrupt. So we're going to see Operation Gladio kick in, I think, increasingly, especially in Eurasia. How much attention people place upon these controlled events is going to matter a great deal, because the more that we place attention onto them and give them life, give them animation, the more we give them traction in changing policy and in framing our reality. So it becomes very important to almost evolve a certain kind of psychopathy. I would call it a philosophical psychopathy, or an intellectual philosophical psychopathy, where you begin to entrain your mind to be able to see and expect these grotesque blood and guts horror shows, knowing in advance that 99% of them are controlled narrative. So there's going to be 1 or 2% that you may have the wrong attitude towards. But in the main, I think to reclaim our own sanity from being indentured into these grisly storylines that are being set off, I think it becomes very important to engage that certain kind of detachment from that false reality. Right. We now know enough about these crisis actors and the false flag events that have been happening all around the world, the Sandy Hook thing, the Brussels attacks, the Paris attacks, all the rest of them. We even had the former head of clandestine operations at the CIA tell us this on film with the Je Suis Humanity campaign that we launched last year, Robert David Steele. So you've got these incredible whistleblowers. Dr. Pijnik, who just came out, largely representing the 16 military intelligence networks agencies in the United States, came out on film with his categorical statements a few weeks ago on behalf of that intelligence network, saying if Hillary Clinton gets into office, they will take her down before she walks into the Oval Office in January. That was just before the election. You've got these incredible whistleblowers who are surfacing now, coming out, standing up, and just saying, okay, enough, game over, let's reset this. Let's break this bone and reset it. So you're going to see that pathology happen, I believe, in a more accelerated sense in 2017. So you're going to see seismic shifts taking place at that level in the psychoculture of the planet. But more importantly than that is the emergence of the cryptocurrencies, the zero-point economics propensity will start to be birthed in a monumental way in 2017. in direct proportion to the collapse of fiat currency systems, all of which are being engineered by the Jesuitical orders, the BIS, the IMF, the World Bank, and the Vatican and the Crown of England, and very carefully stewarded by very dark actions coming out of MI6, Mossad, CIA, or elements within those intelligence infrastructures. And not just them, but the intelligence infrastructure in 200 nations around the world who are also largely implicated in that. So you're going to see a lot more grisly engineered acts of so-called terrorism occur. You're going to see the continued implosion of the global financial system. You're going to see, in proportion to that disclosure, the extraterrestrial and galactic cosmogenesis of the human genome and the human story, I believe, is going to really be placed on the table in 2017. It's almost unthinkable that it can take much longer than 2017, 2018, maybe on the outside. So all of those huge stories all appear to be confluencing around about. Yeah, and rightly so.
Yeah. So it's, and yeah, I was just going to say beautiful, and also that has to happen in order for those to dissolve and the new to birth. Yeah, is that what we have to? We have to see the decline, or the truth has to come out, and all of these, like you said earlier, they all has to be witnessed. Or well, maybe a question for you: does it all have to be witnessed by us all, or is it a case again, like you said, where focus goes, energy flows? Are we able to just pull ourselves out of that and create a whole new dimension reality without even having to take part or even entertain that craziness, or are we going to be affected by it regardless because it's in our field?
Well, it more or less, both of those are likely to be the scenario. Again, where you place your attention is where you will synthesize, which it will determine which of those reality fields you synthesize. For those of us who are building the new earth, so to speak, and are dynamically engaged in digging ditches and building places and imbuing the art and the beauty and the consciousness in our lives and our lifestyles, I think are going to be somewhat protected from that. I know that I am now in a psychological and emotional and philosophical state of mind that I am equal to Armageddon occurring today. I'm equal to apocalypse occurring tomorrow. I would sit probably upstairs from here, look to the horizon, as I'm sure we did in Atlantean times or Lemurian times or ancient times, and witness the unfolding of cataclysm. And I'm fairly certain in my own mind that I'm positioned now, psycho-emotionally and philosophically, to experience and bear witness to cataclysm in a complete state of equanimity and poise. I've worked on that internally, and I feel I've arrived at that point. And so what I'm saying by that, Simon, is that we need to enact cataclysm internally and actually make, in a sense, come to terms with that seismic shift and the sea changes in order to acclimatize our innerscape to that possibility. Now, once you've engaged that shamanic journey, then come back into the world and conduct yourself in grace and in honor. That's it. That's it. But don't get caught up. Don't get caught up in the dialectic of, is it going to happen? Is the markets collapse next Tuesday? Don't concern yourself with this.
And I'm glad you made that distinction, because what I do notice, and I see everyone, some of the things I've heard and watch, and you see people's responses and you just observe, but again, they're coming from individuals, and I speak to those out there who are just not doing the internal work. So when Sacha just said then he's gone and done the internal work where he feels he's in an equanimous place where he can witness that and also dissolve to this idea of that you're witnessing a body right now, you're seeing Simon in a body or Sacha in a body, right? We're talking about moving beyond this concept of death as well.
Oh yeah, I'm quite clear that I'm seeing you, for instance, in your grandmother's cardigan. I mean, I have no doubt in my mind about that.
This is a new cardi, man. I got it from my granddad, man, not my granddaddy. But listen, you're not even seeing this as a cardigan. See, you're blurred. You need to do some more inner work. It's so true, but it's so lovely because it's so lovely. You know why it's lovely? It's because with that little bit of beautiful humor and laughter, there is a lightness and aliveness in this. Like, for example, I don't know if maybe, like you said earlier, I'm just crazy, but I don't really get too involved in all of that noise anyway, meaning that I'm just politics to me. I've got no space for it. I tap into a few key people that speak about it. I listen, I observe, and it doesn't at the moment affect me. I know it's affecting many people, and there's so much terror and fear, but I feel that I've definitely got myself to a position to be beyond that anyway. However, like you said, it's such a key energetic story that even if you don't entertain it, whatever, it just seeps in through some bloody voice, or some person walks past, or you're going down the road and you hear it in the shop, whatever. And I guess I always bring it back to, like, if the personal transformation, the inner transformation, Sacha, is how we literally transcend our body, our mind, our concept of time, and who we think we are, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Then
yes.
as we dissolve that self, again, I guess I say to you, as we dissolve that and we do the work to dissolve that, does that still dimensions just stay there, but it's something you can access if you want, and it's just over there, or literally will that dimension die away? Like the CIA and all this, like Satanism and all that.
I understand. Well, in my view, and this is to do with philosophical pondering more than anything else, but also to some great extent, understanding and having a fairly keen and accurate understanding of my own experience, especially in the metaphysical realms, and seeing how change or shift and the alchemy of expression unfolds. I would suggest that we will see a shift, a paradigmatic shift that is so absolute that any of the old mutant forms, like intelligence infrastructures, parasitic or entropic infrastructures, up to and including city grids, industrial landscapes, wastelands, toxic dumps, all of that stuff in the explicit sense, but also human beings, and oftentimes subhuman beings in human form, who are not commensurate or equal to the value of the human heart, which is I call that frequency X. And if those members of the human family who are not equal to that value at a given point will drop off the tree, as rotten apples are wont to do. So those wastelands, those industrial landscapes, those highly toxic enterprises and constructs, which were all conceived, constructed, and sustained in false light,
fear,
in the old parasitic enterprise of dead blood economy and so on, they will almost certainly holonomically blink out of existence at a given point, simply because they are no longer needful. That when something is no longer of consequence, it doesn't exist. So the idea is, does a cricket chirp in the middle of the Amazonian rainforest when you're not there? Well, the answer to that is obviously yes, it does. And the answer is, why? And the answer to that is because it matters to the cricket and it matters to the tree. It doesn't mean that you have to be there witnessing it. Is there a rainforest on the dark side, on the other side of the moon? Well, there may well be. And if so, it's a matter of the conspiracy of reality that emerges from the creatures on the far side of the moon. It's nothing to do with you and me necessarily.
So there's
because it's real, it's organic, it's real. If it's organic and real, it exists, and there's a function, and it's needful. But where it's not needful, when a toxic wasteland or an industrial wasteland is no longer needful and doesn't serve, then I believe it will blink out of holonomic existence.
So again, if we bring it back to the people, if we look at the people who are who as many years have been said have the power, have where we put our attention, as we said, reality is created, where focus goes, energy flows. If we start to look at that like law that's been shown to us, no matter whether we're so-called in a dark space or a light space or whatever, we're creating that reality. on some level, then actually, again, it's this acquiescent, isn't it? It's this like, as long as we drink the Coca-Cola will make Coca-Cola. It's as simple as that, right? On a real basic level. So I think that's one thing. So let's move into, just for the last few minutes that I have you. Thank you for sharing that stuff. And again, just a reminder to people listening, there's a lot of links in the article below this video. You can go and explore some of this stuff that Sacha's spoken about. And also, if anything triggers and you're sparked and you're like, that sounds interesting, and that calls you, then follow the journey, follow the adventure. So let's just tap in for a little bit, because there's a big thing coming up for me around playfulness, aliveness, enjoyment. And I know you spoke about, okay, there's so much.
Just say it. I'm a swinger. Just say you're a swinger.
I'm just going to say, this is my grand's cardigan. I was lying. I didn't want to be transparent with you. I'm a swinger, swinging 60s. So yeah, just like let's bring some of that to the viewers, because let's be honest, you've just spent a year at this new Earth Haven. There's been beautiful ceremonies, there's been beautiful celebrations. You've got a festival coming next year. I mean, like, as much as like, okay, we can focus on that dark shit and it's all this bad and there's going to be all this sort of like, terror on some level, but I mean, again, I don't experience that. I experience a hell of a lot of fun and joy and laughter. And when you step into this new way of being, where you're not, not even thinking you are who you thought you were, there's a lot of fun. There's a lot of joy.
A lot of fun. There's creative expansion for you. There's the flame of sovereign expression. And that's a beautiful thing. And you can take it wherever you want to take it. You can project yourself or your plasma into the field and take it wherever you want to take it. And the more we relax and release ourselves from the old constrictions of ideation, of up and down and left and right and north, south, east, west, and tick-tock, all the false prison constructs that we've established, longitude, latitude, 24-hour clocks, the 12 houses of the horoscope, all of these nonsensical psycho-emotional and psycho-intellectual prisons that we've created for ourselves to define reality. And thereby we live in those false constructs and we die in them, because all they serve to do is to limit our capacity of effervescent multidimensionality. All they seek to do is cauterize us and circumcise us and blindfold us and manacle us. So at what point do you choose, at what point do I choose to step outside of that fiction and say, fuck it, there is no longitude, latitude. The earth is round, flat, ovoid, concave, all at the same time. I am part of a multifarious, multidimensional reality field of expression, and I will be the arbiter. I will be the determiner of the outcome. And you know what? I choose a blissful outcome. I choose an orgasmic, ecstatic, beautiful outcome. That's it. Yeah. And then engage reality with that flame. Yeah. And believe you me, when you step into that space and you own that kind of, that degree of truth and of clarity, of intentionalizing, there is a conspiracy of the universal mind to fall in and make it manifest with you. Exactly. Because the universe plays with a player, with somebody who's equal to it. Boom. And the universe does not play with somebody who creates false definitions and shuffles along like some kind of android and enslaves themselves into entropic early death. Unfortunately, those very people who most need to be saved and redeemed from that grisly reality are the ones who will actually die to that reality and be part of the incarnatory cycle until one fine day we actualize within self in that space and see that we always held the key to transmute and transcend that false reality into, again, the immanent, effervescent, multidimensional, immortal reality.
Yeah. Boom. There it is. You are the same universal mind. It's like it wants to play with you. It wants to play with you, right? It plays. Look how it plays. Look at what we see. Look at what we witness. Look at the gratitude and the awe everywhere you actually look when you get out of those low frequencies. It's overwhelming some days. I feel so overwhelmed and blessed in what's even to come, the potential of what's there to play with once you realize this as well. It's like, wow, I'm like, what can I draw to me? What can I magnetize to me as my electromagnetic field becomes even more allowed to be what it wants to be, right? When it's not like condensed in all this like survival emotion. It's beautiful.
Well, that might be true of most humans. It's certainly not true of you. I mean, you live in Malta. You're almost certainly a pure blood reptilian bloodline.
Yeah.
But on behalf of the hominid family, I can confirm that what you said is largely true.
Exactly. That is true, actually. But I told you before we began, stop giving away my identity. See, you never listen. Never.
You shapeshifter.
You never ever listen to me. It's like a joke. I put myself on these damn calls just to be revealed. Well, listen, I mean, unless there's anything you want to share with the world, I mean, I feel quite complete in the flow of this conversation. And unless there's anything arising, I know there's often things arising when I'm on the call with you, but you know what I mean.
Well, the only thing I'd like to speak to is I have recently become a Jehovah's Witness, and what I'd like to do is witness now for you for a few minutes and for your viewers, if that's okay.
Yeah, please do. Do whatever you need to share. Share. Call them in.
The curious thing is, as a kid, I used to love it when the Jehovah's Witness turned up, and they'd have those beautiful magazines with like a guy in a suit and tie stroking a lamb on a little like beautiful hillside. And I was thinking, fuck me now, if that's not heaven, I don't know what is. That's just beautiful, isn't it? The guy's not in an office, he's on a hillside stroking a lamb. It was only later that I thought, what's he doing in a tie, suit and
tie? Marketing.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Amazing.
I've got to let you meet a cutie pie. One moment. Get. Bring Kitty Bear here, please. Thanks. You got to meet Kitty Bear.
Please.
You have. Yeah. She's going to make her. She's an Instagram sensation already. In case you hadn't noticed.
No, I hadn't noticed.
But she is the light of my life right now.
This is your monkey.
Ragazzi, yeah. Yeah. Thank you. There's my Kitty Bear. Kitty, look.
You know, all cult leaders have a little dog.
I know.
I saw it on a film.
No, it's a white cat.
It's a white cat. Who was the one? Who was the one that always had the little dog? In James Bond, wasn't it? There's always somebody in James Bond that has a little dog. Scalamander. You're a bit like Scalamanga.
That's the one.
That's the one. So listen.
So
Sacha,
Kitty Bear's just made her debut on Simon on the Sofa. Delightful.
Yeah, delightful. Exactly. And then now I might get some people to actually tune in. Listen to. I hope to see you this year in your New Earth Haven, and I want to say to people watching below, as always, the links, the New Earth Haven, New Earth Project, and the article. Really, I want to bang on about because I really appreciated that article, and please go over and view that. Sacha, I know you're doing a lot over there. Thank you for your time. And thank you for hanging out with me and my Nan's cardigan. One day, you will like the clothes that I wear. I'm gonna wear next time?
Beautiful, thanks, Simon.
I'm gonna wear a vest next time, like yours.
Wife beater, excellent. Delightful seeing you, and I hope we can see you at the New Earth Festival in April next year. That would be delightful.
Yeah, that will indeed. Take care. Thank you so much.
Bye now.
Ciao.
The New Earth Project is a supranational movement which directly challenges the old order and welcomes a new planetary metric for peaceful coexistence, human sovereignty, and abundance. It invites conscious, ethical, self-determining people of the world to cooperate in establishing a global network of communities which foster human and planetary well-being and sustainability, redefining the principles that govern our lives. This is not a future dream, but a living reality, which, given the consent of the people of the world, can now be realized in thousands of communities across the globe. We have built a dedicated network of pioneers from all nations and faiths, each committed to manifesting this new reality. Our team includes many of the world's leading experts in sustainable development, permaculture, socioeconomics, quantum technologies, education and healing, and sovereignty and law. Stand with us in this great awakening as we unite in dreaming a new dream where our world transcends fear, time, and money into art, beauty, and consciousness.